My next guest is Nadim Chaudhry. I keep messing that up.
Chaudhry, yeah.
It's really interesting that you are kind of the author of this event, and it's interesting to talk to you about it because as we see it, the world hydrogen economy is changing so rapidly. I wrote an article several years ago called Hydrogen Hyper Hope. We're going to talk about that in a minute, so be prepared. First question is, how did you get involved in this and why?
Yeah, why indeed. I started, 20 years ago, I read a book about climate change, and it was the background to negotiations in the Kyoto Protocol. And at the time, there was the American negotiation team were coming out of negotiation, and they were surrounded by the oil lobby telling them what to do, and it seemed very much like the Luddites trying to protect their technology and stop technology change. The Luddites used to break up industrial machinery back in the Industrial Revolution in the United Kingdom, and I've been working in events in telecoms, and I could see an opportunity for sort of renewables. At the end of reading this book, the author says I'm off to start a solar company. So when I finished the book, I said, all right, I'm off to start a renewables events company, and that's what I did 20 years ago. And I started looking for markets, and I've done various different markets over my times, carbon markets, I've done lots of solar work, we've run big biofuels events. I've had Al Gore speak at our biofuels event in Europe, which we built up to sort of 1,000, 2,000 people over a number of years. And a lot of those markets came and went with regulation and policy. Right. There was a lot of policy support. Then around about 2012, we had a good event in Chile, which was growing around the utility scale solar, and the market began to become subsidy free. So we developed a whole portfolio across Latin America. We had a big Mexico event with 2,000 people. So we like doing, gritty, really content-focused work where we can really accelerate markets, and we can introduce project developers to finance, to policy. We can make sure the policy people understand how to create investment-grade policy, how to attract, international infrastructure funds. Capital is very mobile, and countries need to understand they need to correct these, get their policy right, and then they can affect change, and So that's around about 2018 we started looking at hydrogen. So we exited some of our Latin American events, and we started looking for the next challenge. And we understood electricity, we understood renewables was going to just keep growing up until sort of 80%. And with that frame in mind, we're looking, well, what can you do to balance the grid, and how can you cope specifically with a Northern European mindset, create that sort of energy reserve? And hydrogen was clearly becoming one of those solution sets. So we began doing work in hydrogen, and we also have always done training courses as well. So we have some of our own internal strong people who really understand the technology. So we put together some training courses, and then COVID hit. So obviously we predominantly do live events. So that was a challenge. So we were able to build a platform called the World Hydrogen Leaders Community, where we could position a lot of our training. And we were able to provide a lot of capacity building and develop a whole portfolio of training courses, which we were able to deliver online, which is essentially around world hydrogen leaders. And then we've got a lot of analysts who provide reports back from different markets on a sort of quarterly basis. And then when COVID has gone away, we returned our live events teams, we like to really focus in on a subject and really work hard. And the business is around data, and it's around also understanding the research, understanding the granularity of what every single market and who the actors are, and getting the right people in the room. So it's around audience curation, making sure you really, there's 38 green steel projects currently happening in the world, and we try and make sure and contact all of them to try and get them to our events. We try and work down all of the various silos. So there's a lot of focused research work to bring all the important market actors together so that they can accelerate projects and we can get steel built in the ground. We see ourselves as trying to accelerate markets, and obviously we do that as a service, and we charge people accordingly. And I have a very skilled team. Some of the people who work with me we've been working in renewables in this area for over 12 years, so they understand the markets, they understand the mechanics of doing live events,
right,
as well as all of the bits in terms of looking after clients, the marketing, making sure you're really good on data and database building, and you invest across the board to create a real premium product. There's a lot of work that goes into doing a good event. It's 12 months worth of work, and we're good at what we do, and we're really focused on that.
And as I can attest to, you have a lot of it that you do.
We try and limit to just do a few things really, really well. We don't want to get too stretched and do too many poor events.
Switching gears, because you're doing events within the hydrogen economy, you had to think about it. You've thought about the different technologies and where we are. I mentioned earlier that I wrote an article called "Hydrogen Hype or Hope." Is it hope? I mean, are we really making that transition to the future?
I think we're clearly building a clean energy system. The clean energy system is going to be predominantly electrons. So I call it like an E-flip. So back in the day, there was the Negroponte flip, because we had all of our broadband delivered wirelessly, and we had all of our narrowband delivered on wires. So we had telephony was done by wires, and broadcasting was done by wireless. And they flipped. We had mobile phones to do phone calls, and we had cables delivering all of our heavy data now. The same thing I see happening with electrons and molecules. We currently have an 80% molecule market and a 20% electron market, and I see it flipping to 80% electrons and 20% molecules. But we need molecules, we need clean molecules. That's probably in terms of quantity of energy, but if you think about the value piece, the value is always going to be in the hard to abate areas. It's by definition hard to abate, it's going to be more valuable. And that's the issue. So I see hydrogen playing a vital role in getting a full clean energy system working, and it can solve problems. It can solve the problems of what electrons can't do. So it can move energy across time and space. So Europe, for example, doesn't have a lot of space. Germany doesn't have a lot of space. The deserts of North Africa, Middle East, Oman, they have a lot of space. Time, in terms of, if there's a thing called the Dunkelflaute, which is an area of low pressure, sits over the North Sea, it turns off all the offshore wind. You need to have strategic energy reserves. In the United States, you have strategic oil reserves in salt caverns. The same thing, hydrogen is going to act as a gas, providing a strategic energy reserve for countries to be able to, heat through the invariability of climate. So that's the big picture I see of hydrogen playing a role. And I see kind of three circles. I call it, I guess, E equals ECH, so energy equals electricity, carbon, and hydrogen. And the electron market is going to be renewables, into circles with a carbon economy, because the problem is carbon going into the atmosphere, and we still can use carbon. We can put obviously carbon into steel, we can capture carbon, and we can reuse carbon, and we can create a circular carbon economy, so that we're not unearthing fossil carbon, but we're using carbon in the current system. So that carbon economy and reuse can intersect with hydrogen, and that's where you can begin to see areas of hydrogen, like if you combine carbon with, say, green hydrogen, and you produce ENG, which is like an electric natural gas, as well as methanol. So I see these three concentric circles of renewables, carbon, and hydrogen. And the size of those circles, predominantly electrons. Electrons are going to continue to march into areas, but there are a couple of things that hydrogen can do or molecules can do, and molecules can fit into existing infrastructure.
Right.
So we're in a race against time. We want to decarbonize by 2050. We have to try and think about reusing existing infrastructures. There's a lot of gas infrastructure, a lot of pipelines, there's a lot of existing power stations that could potentially use hydrogen. There's a lot of, some of the existing molecule infrastructure can be repurposed to clean hydrogen. So there's a lot, and no one knows what the clean energy system will be like in 2050, because there is going to be technology challenges, there's going to be technology innovation. There's been a lot of talk today around the midstream challenges, specifically for hydrogen, which is well known. So yeah, there has to be innovation. Things have to move up the technology readiness scale. I see it tremendously exciting because there's all of this energy and there's all of this uncertainty and there's lots of people trying lots of different things. So innovation and collaboration and people coming together it's like a Cambrian explosion of innovation, and it's exciting, and people need to collaborate. You have ultimately probably convergence happening where you'll see, electric utilities versus gas companies versus, there'll be one energy companies. You can see, the likes of Tesla and looking at, their electric vehicles and their rooftops and batteries all coming together from, say, a consumer standpoint and a very electron consumer energy company. But similar, Tesla could develop for the corporate or the business and industry, providing both green molecules and electrons. So it's a tremendously exciting time, I think, over the next 10, 15 years as we develop a new clean energy system, and they're going to be changing business models, and
Nadim, I thought we were going to talk about events, but you've obviously thought about this hydrogen economy and where we're going. And I think that's what spurs what you guys do, World Hydrogen Leaders, is you're into something that matters. I mean, the world is in Europe has a certain risk right now, but it matters for all of us in a clean environment.
Yeah, I mean, we see the risks. We've seen the risk clearly with the Ukrainian invasion. We had General Wesley Clark speaking here last night specifically for that. He's a great mind who combines, real army experience with an understanding of the realities of geopolitics and power. And we are clearly in a very different stage of history, and I believe history is cyclical. We need to be careful. There are some opportunities which renewable energy and renewable clean energy system can help dampen down the battle for resources and power. A lot of countries can develop. Most countries should be able to develop their own domestic energy independence. You've done it in the US, and a lot of other countries have that ability. Obviously, some countries like Germany and Japan and Korea, etc., are always going to be energy importers, but they can have a broad base of suppliers, and hopefully there'll be less need for wars for power or oil in the future. Who knows?
Nadim, thank you so much. It's been brilliant.
Yeah, it was good talking to you, Alan. Cheers.